Welcome to Thinking in Turns. Today I have a 1v1 ladder replay for you with the Rebel vs Loyalist matchup. This replay is about what happens when you overcommit to a counter, and a nice tempo play that uses the movement speed of Loyalists. As you see, this map has two main lanes where you can attack from, and there are not a lot of forest tiles, there are like single patches all throughout the map, just a little bit sad for the Rebel player. But we'll get started. So in red we have Haldiel playing the Rebels. And in blue we have Caritas playing the Loyalists. From what I know, Haldiel has the information advantage. He knows who he's playing against. Recruits 4 units to grab the nearby villages with the standard opening. Meanwhile, Caritas goes for a lot more units. He actually has a full house. It's just a little bit of an upkeep waste early on, but if he wants to rush or have early action, he obviously wants the units out as fast as possible. And now he confirms that he's playing against Rebels by seeing the elf on this village. There's not too much happening, just villages being grabbed left and right. Caritas going for some scouting with his quick units. Knows exactly what's going on, sees everything but the keep. And recruits a mage fairly early on. Now, he didn't see the Volster that was recruited, but you do expect a Volster to be there, and a mage also helps out a lot with clearing the elves and the forest cells, if they ever get a good position. So I don't mind having one or two mages in general. But this Volster is also... It is a very good counter to Spearman and the Horseman, because of the pierce damage. As you see, it is a 60% piercing damage reduction. And since he did see 3 Spearmen in the Horseman, I think recruiting a Wolf is justified. Right? There's also a second one coming in. And it's generally a really good counter unit to these unit types. Because you will take 0 damage and you have a really good damage output. You have a regeneration ability, which allows you to stay in the fight for quite a while. The main disadvantage being you don't have a lot of dodge chance. Your best dodge chance is on forest cells, which is 40%, and other than that you mostly have 20 or sometimes 30% dodge chance. So they are quite vulnerable, especially when there are 5 units out, like the mages. And I'm pretty sure Caritas will see a walls now. Yeah, he sees the walls, so now he knows what's up. He knows to recruit a couple more units. Now, Loyalists have 2 ways of dealing with the walls, mainly. One of which is the mage for his fire damage. Does like 50% more damage against walls. But the other one is a cavalryman, which is generally a good unit. But he, with his 40% impact damage resistance, and with his normal blade damage, which does normal damage towards us, is a pretty good counter in general. Especially with his mobility, he can outdo a lot of bosses who only have 4 movement points. This will be more or less the focus this turn. Now, this is where I feel like Haldiel is over-recruiting walls a little bit. There's a 3rd walls coming in. He only sees these 3 spearmen here and the horseman. So getting 3 walls just for these 4 units that you see, I feel like is a little bit of an overcommitment. You should be seeing at least like 1-2 more spearmen or maybe 1 more horseman to justify this amount of these heavy, clunky units who do have decent counters. So he doesn't see much more. He even sees a mage right now, right? Fencer, which is reasonably decent against the walls, but more so he's the skirmisher, which helps breaking through lines. Caritas was a really nice pick on the Elvish Scout. Does have him zone of control here, he can't move out of this one. And has units in vicinity to help out. So really nice. The Scout goes down, obviously Haldiel will have less vision, less information. And we got 1 more cavalryman coming up. This is a very good recruitment in the face of all the voices that he's facing. Generally, you don't want to be recruiting a lot of cavalrymen against elves because they have piercing damage on almost every unit they recruit. the elf fighters as well as the archers, and this is very, very scary for a cavalryman. But with the amount of bosses you see, you might as well just go for them. So there's this small skirmish here. And Haldiel trying to push the west side, but he sees a mage and 2 spearmen, which might make it a little bit difficult. And the scout goes on, first kill of the game, goes to Caritas. Picking up with the spearman who is resilient strong. Not a bad shout. You get to retreat with your cavalryman, now there's another cavalryman coming in. Again, you wouldn't usually see this amount of cavalrymen, but considering the amount of bosses you see, I think it is a decent recruit. So yeah, Haldiel trying to push on the west side because he thinks a lot of units east here, and it is absolutely true. But the question is, do you have enough power to punch through the 2 spearmen and the mage with 2 bosses? Generally, this would be fine. This would be a good engagement for the elves, especially if once we go to dawn or nighttime. But with these cavalrymen having 9 to 8 movement speed, they will arrive here very quickly, so you need to be fast on this play. Yeah, now Haldiel sees there are more units coming in. There's a cavalryman here, there's a longbowman, the leader over here, and these 4 units will not be enough to break through these units. At the same time, he sees all the units running away, so he should be considering them coming over. And this is where not having a scout hurts a little bit, because you don't really know what's going on, you don't really know where the units are coming to, where they're running. Caritas position, he did recruit another mage. Now he has 2 quick mages on the west front, which is pretty good. Having quick mages especially is really strong. They can be dexterous, so you do have an easier time just getting into position or getting out of bad situations. And there's another walls being recruited now. This would have been good 5 turns ago, but you've seen so many cavalrymen, you've seen so many mages already, there's really no point in getting more bosses. I think it would just be better to get the normal fighters, at least they are very solid in general. Maybe get 1 or 2 shamans, so you have a little bit of sustain. But now I see that this is way too many counter units. Who, again, they are very good into spearmen, into horsemen, but there are only 3 spearmen. So, how often will you be able to use your walls against them? Haldiel is setting up for somewhat of a pincer attack. It is about to be nighttime, which is a good occasion for them, because he's playing against local units. And he's trying to pressure both fronts at the same time, which does look quite scary. Main drawback being of 1 or 2 voices that are still left behind. So we'll see how Caritas handles it. He creates another mage, just positions his units somewhat evenly on both sides. Now, this is probably an engagement that you should consider taking, at the very least. You do have the good time of day, you do have a decent position. There are a lot of horses out here that do suffer from your piercing damage. You have a walls which can tank the spearman, which can tank the fencer, if you really want to. And at the same time, you're pressuring the other side. These mages will not get to the east in time to fight the horses, to fight the archers, which have very good dodge chance on the forest cells here. Right. But this is an engagement worth considering. But Haldiel retreats because he's not confident enough in his setup right now. And as well, he doesn't really know where the rest of Caritas units are, because he doesn't have these areas he scouted. There's a 3rd mage, a quick mage here. Now Caritas is moving out. And this is a very interesting play that I think has a lot of merit. First of all, the walls gets hit with the mages, with the cavalryman. You see the cavalryman took barely any damage from the walls. And at the same time, he's pulling his cavalry back. And this allows him to take this engagement. If you count the units, obviously he has one more unit right now on this side. And even if the time of day is not favorable for him, he can take this engagement. It's a 5v4. And then you have the two mermen over here. He does have the counter units, at least against the bosses. And his reinforcements, his other units will be here faster. The cavalryman with 8 movement points will arrive at this side much quicker than these two bosses and these elves right here. Now the elves will arrive eventually, but the bosses will just take forever with 4 movement points. And this pushes Haldiel back on the rest. And pushing someone back during an unfavorable time of day is an insane advantage. Because now you get to push further, and then you can fight while you have daytime coming in. So you see all these cavalrymen arriving over here in about 3 turns. This is the second turn, and the third turn they will be right here next into the action. And meanwhile the elven units will still take 1 or 2 turns to be here. So yeah, pretty sure at this point, he sees the cavalry coming over right now, Haldiel. So at this point, you kind of need to decide whether you want to still pull your units to the west front and try to hold this, or whether you want to start and launching an counter attack on the east. As I said, if you want to defend the west front, it's not a favorable time of day for you to fight. So you will most likely have to give up 1, 2, maybe all 3 villages here. And wait until the favorable time of day, which might not even secure you the win, because you have a lot of bosses which are getting countered by the units here. So I think at this point, probably the best idea you can have is try and launch a counter attack somehow, get some value back, while you still try and hold the line around the fort. Haldiel decides to try and move all his units to defend in a big fight. And now you see it is still dawn. Next time it is for the first watch, and Caritas gets a very good setup on his units coming in. You see the cavalry arrives very quickly, and now you have, how many is it? 3 mages, 3 cavalrymen, 2 spearmen, and overall it is 10 units plus the merman on the side. And while Haldiel only has his 3 bosses here, 3 archers, 1 eldritch warrior, which is just a considerable unit disadvantage. Also, pushing on the other side is, I think, it's very commendable, especially if Haldiel decides to move all of his units to the west. You have some pressure on the villages here. Yeah, Haldiel decides to take the fight. He does have the favorable matchup here. He does use the forest, now trying to use the piercing damage. Usually, you want to be the first to start the fight in Wesnoth, simply because you get to get the better matchups. Like this is a good matchup. This is a good matchup because you have piercing damage in the scouts, but fighting at morning is just so difficult. See the bows barely doing 10 damage to the cavalryman, so it's really not that good of a matchup. And I think Haldiel did get a little bit unlucky here with his hits. The scout probably should have went down, maybe the Spearman gets 1 more hit, but even if he gets good hits here, he should still lose this engagement, simply because of the mashups and the numbers advantage Caritas has. I see there are less units being recruited. The leaders comes forward to add some extra fighting power to this. Let's see how this plays out. We have 1 mage picking up the kill against the walls. You have another mage coming in. That's the 3rd mage. Now you took 2 bosses with just 3 units. Incredible. Now the archer gets sniped by the horseman because he's out of position. They only have 40% dodge chance on the flat tiles. You ideally want your archers to be on forest tiles because of the 70% dodge chance. There are not loaded forests in this map. Yeah, the units just keep coming in, taking decent engagements. They don't really need to be hard winning. But yeah, you sniped a couple of bosses, you sniped 2 archers here because of better units and better terrain for yourself, because of better time of day. And at this point, this game is over. And Haldiel surrenders. But I thought it is a very fun replay to watch, simply because you really see the difference in terms of units. Haldiel over-recruiting the bosses, and obviously Caritas recruiting the counter units in a very good manner. And what I really liked was especially this tempo play, where you do have a lot of fast units, and because you know you will be here quicker, because you know you have the numbers advantage, you get to push during night, and then you get to fight during day. It was, I think, very amazing, very well played. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this 1-1 review, right? And I'll see you in the next video.